Hi everyone, welcome to TowerTales, the ATC Podcast. I am your host, Mahesh Sharma. Here, we bring you the untold stories of veteran air traffic controllers from the Indian Air Force. In each episode, we delve into their experiences, sharing their real stories, anecdotes, challenges, and the critical roles they played in ensuring the safety and security of our skies. Get ready to explore the fascinating world behind the control tower and honor these radioactive substance of aviation. We have a special guest for this episode who was a Cat A controller par excellence, also known for his inimitable style of radio telephony. Born in 1951, he passed out with the 40th course of NDA in 1971 and was commissioned in the IAF in December 1972. He superannuated as an Air Vice Marshal in August 2009. For his distinguished service, he was awarded Ati Vishisht Seva Medal and Vishisht Seva Medal by the President of India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Air Vice Marshal JS Gandyok. Good evening, Air Marshal Gandhiyog, and welcome to this podcast, TowerTales. I'm privileged to have you with us, sir.
Good evening, Mahesh. It's my proud privilege to be in front of you after a long time. Very happy about it.
Yes, sir. I fondly remember you, and I cherish the times, I had shared with stalwarts like you in the Air Force. Thanks to them, I could become a good controller. So it's always a pleasure. Besides recording this podcast, it takes me back the memory lane.
Same here. I'm so happy to be in front of you and talking to you.
Thank you, sir. And this being the second podcast in the series that we are recording with the veteran air traffic controllers, this assumes good significance because people are waiting to listen to more. And as compared to the previous one, we will be a little more focused, keeping the time in mind. So without much ado, I would jump in to ask you the first question, which is, can you tell us something about your earliest memories as an air traffic controller in the Indian Air Force? I know it's a long time back. I think you're from the 40th course NDA.
Absolutely correct. 40th NDA course, 51st GDOC. Well, little background, joined the National Defence Academy to become a pilot in the Indian Air Force. But God had his own way, which I couldn't become a pilot, but I did become an air traffic control officer. 71 war was about to start, and people asked me that you landed up here in month of November 71 and the war is going to start. What are you doing here? Well, I told them that I had gone to become a pilot, but didn't work out, but maybe I'll do something better than that. So got called for the admin branch, AFAC in Jan 72, and we were 16 ex-NDAs in the course and 8 were ex-airmen. And I was told that you were the course leader. Just before the passing out parade, I was called by the chief instructor, admin wing. By then, results were almost ready. So he said, why are you wanting to go to air traffic control? We want youngsters like you in the admin chairs in the Indian Air Force. So I told him, sir, I want to become a pilot. I could become one. So I want to be in touch with the operations. And the only way to do is to become air traffic control officer. So that's how I landed up. And then 10 of us were sent to ATC school then at Air Force Station Hakimpet. There was no ATCOT at that time.
Unlike a civilian air controller, an air traffic controller in the Air Force is required to handle runway works, required to oversee the crash firefighting operations and all that. So it's a huge spread of roles that a controller performs, and for them to work as a cohesive team, it takes more than basic skill. I think the human skill management. So as a SATCO, how did you ensure that your team remains cohesive?
Very good question, actually. I think you may be aware that I had only one tenure as SATCO, and that was Jamnagar, and very longish tenure, 5 years. And I had, I think, 10 to 12 controllers and about 50 odd airfield safety operators. The team was very good by itself, and I didn't have to do much, to be very frank, to get them on track and on glide path, right? And to set an example, I had to personally sit on the RT every day. Especially the first detail, I used to personally be sitting on the RT, star channel, and little later go to the radar and sit on the radar. So that motivated the team leader, team personnel, that here's a man who's leading by example, right? And that worked very fine with me. My days to start visiting the, when I used to go to the air traffic control tower, first visit is to the crash bay, meet all the personnel on duty, see all the vehicles over there, and come up and meet the duty clock, the ops clock, we used to call it, and have a chat with the airman on watch and things like this. And of course, the duty controller, DATCO. And I also made it a point to attend the briefings in the morning, whatever time the briefing used to be. Like Jamnagar had, if you remember, heavy flying environment with TACD over there, the flying used to start pretty early. But that didn't deter me. I used to be there at the first briefing and first takeoff. So that made tremendous difference and motivated all my boys, but not only the officers, but the airfield safety operators also. So that made my life a little easy, actually.
I think that's a wonderful message, and I'm sure it'll help the young controllers also to lead by example, be with the team, and know as much as them, if not better. So because once you earn the respect of your team, I think rest of the things become much easier.
Absolutely true.
Sir, let's change track and go to something more interesting. I'm sure people are waiting to listen to some interesting anecdote and stories from you. Can you recall some situation that you faced as a young controller, especially pertaining to operations when you were on RT, and how did you handle that situation? Because I'm sure every controller has his or her share of such situations. So what can you recall very fondly, or something that you really felt that need to be told?
Well, this particular, I had plenty of them, but the one I'm going to tell you now is something which, is very close to me. I was posted Adhampur, dusk flying was on, and at that time, 5 of fighter pilot coastmates were also in Adhampur, right? And one of those coastmates, unfortunately, is no more. When I got suspended in flying, and he had made it by then, in the 3rd, 4th solos, he told me, Gandhi, I used to be called Gandhi in the Air Force, Gandhi, so you couldn't make it, huh? So that hit me very hard. That got written in my heart. So I wanted to prove to him and to the other coastmates that if I couldn't make it as a pilot, maybe I could make it as an ATCO. The same coastmate, while flying, had a problem. His main compass packed up, and in Type 77, you had nothing else except main compass, and standby compass was not functioning most of the time. Unfortunately, there was no radar that time in Adhampur, and the weather packed up suddenly. And diversions, Pathankot and Halwara also packed up. So others, there were 7 other aircraft who were recovered. And I had to recover this guy, my own coastmate, with the help of unserviceable compass procedure. So that worked out, and he had no option but to land at Adhampur because the diversions were not there. And it worked out because he flew accurately. What I told him, and he flew, and by the time he came for landing, it was already raining. But he made the ground and barely managed to taxi back to his parking bay because he had no fuel. After he switched off, he came running to the ATC and hugged me. He said, Gandhi, you saved my life. I wanted to tell him that time that you were the person who told me that you couldn't become a pilot. But I told him nothing of that sort. I said, well, that's my job and I'm very happy about it. So that's an interesting episode with me.
Thank you, sir, for narrating that episode. And I'm sure air traffic controllers have a very enviable position because, like you have mentioned yours, there are others also who have been able to save lives, especially on a rainy day. And once you save a life, your life becomes worth living, even if you save a single life.
Absolutely.
And such are the situations when you can't even err. You put your skill to test, and there is no second chance. It's like, going for a bombing run in an enemy territory. I'm just trying a parallel with the operations.
Yeah.
And you have only one pass and you better hit the target. Similarly, when you have a US compass or a weather situation like this, the aircraft cannot go around. Or the pilot cannot get lost.
Absolutely.
You have only one chance, so you better be, successful in that.
That's right.
Thank you so much for narrating that instance, sir. Which brings me back to another point. Since you mentioned about US compass, and I remember we all were initially, because the navigational aids were far and few. You mentioned 8200 and stuff like that before the CADF and DRDF came. The technology evolved over a period of time. But what were some of the limitations? Can you recall some funny ones or maybe very interesting ones? What were some of the technological limitations you had worked with? And how do you see technology poised now?
Plenty of limitation, actually. As I said, Homer 8200 or 210C was the only aid you had. And most of the stations did not have ground control approach GCA radar. So you had to depend upon those Homers. And I remember an incident again in Jorat. I was posted there, my second posting. And Fokker Friendship flights used to come from Kolkata. And in Jorat in winters, the weather used to pack up suddenly after the sunrise. The flight used to be landing there just about half an hour after sunrise. And remember one incident like this, over a period of time, probably those pilots who used to come, they were very few and they recognized their voices and things like this. And I had another co-pilot over there, late Ashok Kumar Chaturvedi, who's no more. We were two pilot officers and one from junior course, Bhola, Tilak Raj Bhola. So we were three pilot officers and all of us were very good, to be very frank about it. So the pilots were very happy to hear us on the RT and the weather packed up. He asked me, can you get me down? I said, I have no radar, I have only Homer. He says, all right, can you give me a control descent? So I said, I can give you a control descent, but got to spot the runway. All that was going on the RT. He said, doesn't matter. So I give him a QGH and sort of worked out his ground speed is 120 knots. Now he's traveling this much at distance. So I kept telling him like a fool, like in regular, that you should be 5 miles from touchdown. There should be, I think, like this. And when he finally reached so-called OC for his aircraft, he spotted runway and brought the aircraft on ground. So this is the faith they had, those pilots had, civil pilots, in the controllers, the young controllers, we were there. And whatever aids we had, the 8200, that worked. But that was a limitation. So I don't think that can happen today. Firstly, the aids are very good, and sitting in the control tower, you can see a lot of good aids available. But those days, there were a lot of limitations about the navigational aids. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I think the controllers worked with those limitations, but now, what do you think, sir? What would be the challenges faced by the controllers now? Because I'm sure the challenges would be there. Now you have secondary radars, you have CNS ATM and all that. What do you think would be the challenges now from your perspective?
Challenges will be much less compared to what we faced, actually. There's a lot of help available to the controllers, as you said about radars and secondary. My own son, by the way, he's a wing commander, ATC officer in the Air Force. He's posted at Jaisalmer.
Oh, that's nice.
Right now, he's available here
nice
on leave. So he keeps telling me, what's happening in the air traffic control setup of the Indian Air Force. But I tell him that what challenges we face during a time, he said, Dad, nothing of that sort. No, we're very comfortable. So there are hardly any challenges compared to what we faced during a time. So they're very comfortable with whatever technological developments have taken place in the air traffic control setup. Yeah.
I'm sure, sir. I think like in fighter aircraft also now you have weapon system operators and additional pilot and all, especially for very strategic missions, very critical missions. Similarly, I think one of the challenges that controllers might be facing today is how to exploit the technology, and especially when there are multiple inputs which are coming in. I'm sure multiple inputs were there during our time also, because you're handling calls, you're handling intercoms and stuff like that. But I think a situational awareness in terms of technology also becomes very important. What do you think about it, sir?
Absolutely. The inputs are very many for this controller, you see. And all these latest developments have made their life comfortable. That definitely has made a life comfortable for them. And inputs that they're getting are much more than what we used to be getting it during our time. So the developments in the technology, in equipment and other paraphernalia is really good, and for the setup of the ATCs and for the controllers, definitely.
So I think a controller also needs to be very tech savvy today, because in order to, of course, the technology offers you a user interface, but to understand the limitations of a system and to exploit it becomes very important. I think, sir, let us talk about a particular subject which is of interest to civilians, and since we are, this particular podcast is going to be in civilian domain also. A lot of them would be interested to understand from an air traffic control about the weather, especially when you hear every second day that there is a turbulence and people get injured. So I am sure many of them would be curious. Now, as a controller, I'm sure you would have faced a lot of tough weather situations, especially when a lot of aircraft are airborne and air operations are on. So how did controllers deal with the weather, or what do you think from a civilian perspective a controller's role is when it comes to handling aircraft in weather?
Well, weather plays very important part in handling the air traffic. We all know about it. And these days the inputs are so true. Controllers do get to know, what sort of weather you're going to expect in next few hours or otherwise, or even when the traffic has been controlled. The inputs are very good for them. And that sort of thing was not available to us. We used to be depending heavily on the forecast given by our Met brother officers, but sorry to say that most of the time we should turn out the other way around. But that situation is not there today. Today, things are much better, and the inputs are very good, and it works in the favor of the controllers in doing their job and controlling the traffic.
I'm sure even the Met equipment have also evolved, so they are in a better position to accurately predict it. But sir, since we are talking about the weather, can you narrate a situation where your skills were put to test and suddenly the weather developed and you had a lot of aircraft to recover?
It happened in Jodhpur.
I'm sure there would be many.
Many, but this one in Jodhpur, I was posted up in Adamu to Jodhpur, and CEO of 220 Squadron, Jimmy Bhatia, who retired as a Marshal, he had just converted onto the type from Maruts to this. He had taken up one of youngsters, Baldev Singh his name, and for a low-level tactical. And as it happened, the weather certainly packed up. Dust storm hit the thing. Though there was no weather warning, but it happened. Or we got just about half an hour, less than half an hour warning. And there was another 5 to 6 aircraft. We had GCA there, of course. And I was sitting in the radar. I was the only controller in GCA, manning both SRE. And so, being a CEO and experienced person, he told his number 2 to be with him. He sort of sheep shepherded him to a good height and started orbiting for endurance. So I could manage to recover the other aircraft. Safety is no problem. But in this case, by the time their turn came to land, the weather really packed up. Visibility was bad, and it was bad at Jaisalmer, the diversion, and the other Uttalai. And they didn't have fuel enough to go there. Or they didn't want to go, whatever could be the reason. So I started recovering them by doing a tactical GCA. It was not tactical for CEO, he was doing sheep shepherding. Till I got them onto the PR. When I gave him a number 2 first turn to PR, I found blips of bigger, large size. Apparently, the CEO had not left his number 2. So he kept shepherding him. And finally, at stage came, and I would tell him that, Tiger leader, are you with him? He didn't answer. Anyway, I just concentrated on that, and Baldev landed. He spotted the runway. Even at OCA, it was difficult, but he spotted the runway, landed. Now for Vinco, then Vinco, Jimmy Bhatia, he didn't want to do a radar approach. He wanted to do a tactical approach, rather time circuit, which they used to call it, remember?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With great difficulty, he managed to, he was well left of the track. When I tell him, say, left the track, turn right, this, that. He landed on the left edge of the runway, but plonked the aircraft. But that was very nervy for me. I was alone in the GCA, first to recover those 5-6 aircraft, and then to give a tactical GCA. And actually, it was a sheep shepherd GCA. I've never done a sheep shepherd GCA. But the tension was a hell of a lot. But I prayed to God at that time, and God helped me out, and the aircraft were recovered.
Great hearing such stories, sir. And I what I'm amazed at is, the incidents must have been so indelible that even today you recall them, and I could hear the thrill in your voice was palpable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And worst thing was that commanding there, all the big shots had ended up in the ATC, and some came to the radar also. Of course, my SATCO was MR Nair, and he also came running little later to help me out. Not that, but what I'm saying is that it was a panic situation for most of the people in Jodhpur at that time to recover the aircraft. Yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to recover them, and that is where the mettle of an ATC officer is proved. So, since you mentioned about this and the pilot controller interaction, because many a times I remember during weather, there are conflicting opinions. The Met officer saying something, the squadron commander trying to meet the training targets, and also there are instances where there are conflicting situations, and ATCOs work under a lot of pressure. But from your perspective, how important is a pilot controller relation or rapport in terms of ensuring safe operations?
Very important. And ATCO and pilot rapport have to be very, very good. I can talk of my own self. Being an ex-NDA, most of my flying quotes were available where I posted. And I used to be very pally with most of the squadron pilots. And that made things very easy for me. The rapport was so good that confidence level both ways, my voice to them and their voice to me, it worked. It was all because I was sort of part and parcel of the squadron crowd. I used to attend all the function parties. They used to invite me, not only me, the other controllers also. I'm not talking of myself. So the rapport between the pilots and the controller, the commandery has to be very, very good. That makes things very easy.
I think that is an important point or a message for the young controllers, because it is key to safe air operations, and the more we know about each other's professions, the easier it becomes. So besides this, as we come to a close of this podcast, towards the end of this podcast, do you have any message for the young controllers?
I would like guys to become air traffic controllers in the Air Force. Example of my own son, I was setting course for Shillong in 2005 when he shows me a call from Dehradun SSB for ATC officers. So I looked at him. I said, are you all right? You want to be ATC officer? He said, Dad, if you can become an Air Marshal, I can also become an Air Marshal. So that really hit me. I said, okay, boy, go. And I'm so happy. Yesterday, he finished 18 years of service. He's doing very well for himself. And I keep telling that, unfortunately, we don't find very many Air Force officers' children in air traffic control. Very, very few, actually. Even otherwise in flying also. So this is a very good profession, very satisfying profession. And especially in the Indian Air Force, I would urge youngsters that, yes, one should become a pilot, fine. But if you can't become a pilot like me, then become an ATCO.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your son has a good inspiration at home. And we are looking forward to seeing him as a successful air traffic controller. Sir, before we wrap it up, any, light-hearted tradition or a funny incident that you would like to narrate, either within, the ATC or while interacting with the pilots, anything that comes to your mind?
Well, I can't pinpoint a particular thing, but as I said, I used to be very friendly with pilots and even other branch officers. And one of the hobbies is singing. I love to sing, and especially Punjabi songs. So in Jamnagar, one of the squadron pilots had finally become Air Chief Dhanova. He had his son's
Tony, sir.
He has one son and his son's birthday, and he was called, and AOC was Shashi Tyagi, who became chief again. So Dhanova tells me, Tony, Gandhi sir, Gana ho jaye. I said, ho jaye, why not? And my wife also can sing a little bit also. So we sang Punjabi tappas and things like this, and Shashi Tyagi also joined in, started dancing on my numbers, So it was a big hit, and from then on, I became popular as a singer in the Air Force in Jamnagar also. So they said that this is a Sadko who can do work, he can do arty, he can do singing, and I play tabla also. And in Gurdwara, I used to play tabla and things like this. So this funny incident where AOC dancing on my tunes, something like that.
No wonder, sir, the pilots were so happy listening to your tunes, even on RT. Thank you so much, sir. I think we had a wonderful chat, and there's so many key takeaways from this session. I think it has got everything. You have reminisced many of your fond memories. Your colleagues, your peers, your seniors, your juniors, everybody would like to listen to this and bring back those memories. And also, there was a message for young controllers. Anything else before
like to say something?
you would like to say?
Like I said, my first 24-year service, I was an air traffic controller, not a single staff appointment. I was hung up on doing nothing but RT, which is wrong. As I picked up my rank and became senior, I found that I should have been doing admin duties also, besides controlling. That's very important. I tell my son also, you must do additional duties, leave TAR, do all sorts of secondary duties, admin duties. And just in case I tell him that you become senior and pick up rank, you ought to have this background with you. Just don't get stuck with this controlling. No. If you're in the Air Force, you have to do all sorts of duties, all sorts of jobs, besides controlling, of course. And this I realized when I became Chief Administrative Officer in Kalaikunda, busy base. I had to work very, very hard to prove myself. And thanks to Air Marshal Garkal, he was then a CPS in command and one of my mentors. So he says, Gandhi, you got to be awarded for this. And sure enough, he made sure that I got my VSM from there. So it's because of working very hard as administrator, besides being an air traffic control officer. So all the youngsters must get into this, that besides controlling job, you must do other duties also if you want to do well in service.
I think that's a wonderful message, sir. And, I remember even during our times also, a lot of people would take the secondary duties, as we would call it, as a burden. But those who had done those secondary duties, they were always in a better stead. So I think it's a wonderful message to all the youngsters, and it couldn't have come, sooner. So, and I'm sure, the kind of gratitude you have for your seniors, especially Marshal Garkal, I think he would be very happy to listen to your words when he hears.
Not
this
only him,
podcast.
Kamda Chan, who was my deputy SATCO in Adampo, wonderful man, wonderful controller, wonderful guide. I owe a lot to him also for me to come out to this stage.
Thank you so much, sir, for being on
Mahesh.
my show, this podcast.
And
TowerTales.
you are a wonderful person on mic and for conducting interviews. God bless you and keep at it. All the very best.
So your stories are making
Thank
this
you.
wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much, sir.
All
Have
the
a good
best.
day. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into TowerTales, the ATC podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and had a first-hand peek into the incredible work and life of yet another veteran air traffic controller. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. This podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Your feedback will help me bring you more of the content you love. Join me after a fortnight for yet another engaging discussion with a veteran air traffic controller. Until then, this is Mahesh Sharma, your host, signing off for now. Safe travels and good day.